Is Christianity sexist? Oftentimes Christianity can be portrayed as a misogynist religion that just doesn't celebrate women. But is that really true? Today we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about womanhood. Let's start by going right back to the beginning with the first woman, Eve. In Genesis 2 it says that Eve was created to be Adam's helper. And I don't know about you, but you might think that this word helper has negative connotations, as if Eve was just there to help Adam with whatever he pleased, or just there to serve him. But the truth is that the root word of helper means ezer in Hebrew. And it's actually the same word that God uses to describe himself on multiple occasions in the Old Testament. And God is humanity's ezer. And that word means to rescue or save and to be strong. And so Eve, right at the beginning, is given this title of dignity and honor and strength, recognizing that women are not just this thing that's here to help man or whatever, but they themselves are strong and they have a position that's really important in society and in the place of relationships and family. But also, Eve is the first person who receives a promise of redemption in the Bible. It says that after Adam and Eve sinned, that women will be Eve will be saved because she will carry the seed that will bring redemption. And so right from the beginning, as women, we receive a place in salvation history. And if we continue on in the Old Testament, there are so many women that had really important places in society and that were really given a title of honor, such as Miriam, who was a leader of worship, or Deborah, who was part of the whole era of judges, and she herself was a judge and a leader of the people. We had someone like Ruth, who out of love and just utter courage went through thick and thin to be with her mother-in-law. We had someone like Esther, whom we looked at a few weeks ago, who was a queen who stood up for her people and saved her people. And that's so unique to ancient literature, to how it portrays women. The Bible is the only book that really gives this title of honor and that places women as equal in society. There's another example that's really well known in the Old Testament, and that's in Proverbs 31. It talks of the woman or the wife of noble character. And it's really interesting because actually the whole book of Proverbs is about wisdom, and wisdom in that book is personified as female, as a woman. It's also interesting to think that wisdom is an attribute of God. And although, we refer to God as Father, and Jesus obviously did, the Spirit doesn't have a gender. And it even says, in Genesis, that man and woman are made in the image of God. And so that woman of wisdom, she's not really what you would think a stereotypical church woman or Christian woman might be. This woman is someone who works, who wears really fashionable and beautiful clothes. She's not someone who's really not stylish and not cool and not allowed to wear nice things. She's someone who's a leader. She takes responsibility. She's full of energy. She is an activist in social justice. She takes care of her finances, and she's as respected as her husband is. The Bible holds her up as an example of womanhood. And the Bible doesn't say that womanhood is about luxury and comfort, but it calls us as women to have a life of purpose, a life of passion, a life of service to the Lord and to others. We're now going to look at what the New Testament has to say. Have you ever thought about the fact that the most important event in history and the cornerstone of Christianity relies on the testimony of women? When Jesus rose again, the first people that saw him and related the news were women. And we have to remember that back in those days, the testimony of women was basically worthless. And so that tells us that Jesus valued women so much that he entrusted them with the entire gospel. And all Christian ministry flows from what these ladies had to say. Jesus constantly broke down stereotypes and oppressive behaviors against women during his time on earth. For example, Greek culture massively impacted the way Jewish people labeled women. They were seen as this really dangerous thing that would lead you into sexual temptation, and so all blame was on them. But in Matthew 5, Jesus says that when a man looks at a woman lustfully, That's just as bad as committing adultery. In fact, he is committing adultery by doing this. And so he completely flipped it around and showed us that it wasn't about gender, but about the state of our hearts. Other examples are Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet, which was an act that only people who were very close to the rabbi, only students who were the closest to their teacher, would be allowed to do. And Jesus invites her to be there with him. In fact, when Martha comes and she's so stuck, in her stereotypical society that she tells Mary, "You belong to the kitchen, what are you doing learning from Jesus?" Jesus actually says, no, she's chosen the right thing to do. She belongs here in that place of teaching and learning. We also have the woman at the well, where Jesus completely broke down any societal rules to even interact with her. But also she was the first evangelist to a foreign people. The woman with the alabaster jar, Jesus gives her the most amazing compliment, and he gives her a title of remembrance and of honor by saying that she will be remembered every time the gospel is preached. But also in Romans 16, which is a really explosive passage, Paul addresses loads of church leaders, among whom there was many women, including a woman apostle, Junia. So with all of this, there are still controversial passages here and there. For example, 1 Timothy 2, 11 to 15. First of all, let's just remember that verses 8 to 10, just before, was laying out what manhood and womanhood should look like as Christians. It was breaking down the stereotypes, not saying that men should be this or women should be this, but more that it is Christ that matters and the changes that he brings in our life that truly matter. So back to verse 11, where it said that a woman should learn in quietness and submission. That word learn has the same root as disciple and as student. And so what this is saying is more that women should be allowed to be knowledgeable, to be learning, to be students. Referring back to the woman in Proverbs 31, do you remember that it said she was a knowledgeable woman? But also this passage was written in the context of Ephesus, where there was a prominent cult led by women. And it is possible that Paul here was addressing particularly these women. There are a couple more passages that might be a bit difficult to get to grips with. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, why have some people built the whole of church culture on very few controversial passages? This isn't to make a feminist point. In fact, I'm convinced that God isn't interested in any isms, but rather he is interested in equal value and love of all of humanity, whether male or female. In Galatians 3:28, it says that there is neither Jew or Gentile, neither male or female, but what matters is our identity in Christ Jesus. So in answer to our question, is Christianity sexist? I don't believe it for a minute.